Hey everyone, my name is Anna. Welcome to my channel. This video is going to explore one of what I consider to be the most interesting and charismatic dichotomies in the INFP personality type, which is what I call tender heart and tough spirit. So I know that all personality types have their dichotomies, and all personality types have a kind of sweet side and a spicy side. But I really wanted to look at the way that INFPs are both some of the most gentle creatures as well as some of the most hardcore creatures, and how the same qualities within us give forth to the tenderness of our heart and the toughness of our spirits. So for me, the tender-heartedness is the way that typically INFPs display a lot of kindness, a lot of caring, a lot of compassion, and that also typically we lead with our hearts in relationship to life. And as for the tough-spiritedness, it's the way that INFPs typically are courageous, resilient, and uncompromising in our relationship to life. There's something that I have personally perceived that I'm really curious if you have a similar perception, which is that when I observe INFPs, including myself, I find that we have a very gentle, soft demeanor on the outside. But in my experience, certainly with myself, and what I've observed about other INFPs, is that internally, we're basically tougher than we look. So I kind of have this running joke about INFPs that we look nicer than we are. We're actually not that nice. And I'm kidding, but I also mean it. We're pretty hardcore inside, and I don't think it shows. And I'm just really curious if you have that same observation of yourself or others. It's not the whole truth. I know that there's a lot of softness inside us too, but I was just wondering if you'd made a similar observation. So let me get into a few of the qualities that I think give forth simultaneously to our tenderheartedness and our tough-spiritedness. So the first one is our dominant function, FI, introverted feeling. We are deep divers of the emotional experience of being alive. So we have emotional depth, sensitivity, range. We are emotionally attuned. We are emotional seekers. And that gives a lot of emotional courage and a lot of emotional intelligence at some point, because we're gathering so much emotional experience and we're exploring so much of our emotional landscape. So a byproduct of being deep divers of the emotional experience is that it creates a lot of care and kindness and compassion. We're exploring the light and the dark of our emotional experience of life constantly. The emotional experience is wild and messy. It's uncontrollable. And the willingness to look so deep into what might be very murky and mysterious aspects of our existence, it takes toughness to dive into those waters, but in diving in those waters, we get even tougher in a way. So our introverted feeling and the deep diving that we do emotionally, I think really gives forth to a lot of that tenderness that we have towards life, and also a lot of the resilience and toughness that we have towards life. Another quality that I think gives rise to that tenderness and that toughness is that typically the INFP is led by a higher calling. We are living our lives with the flame of our spirit intact, and the flame of our spirit is what's guiding us. And I think that being led by a higher calling is a state of surrender and humility in a lot of ways. There's a lot of compassion in our sense of purpose. We want to bring something beautiful to life and to humanity. And that in itself is a tender, loving, caring, heart-led state. But at the same time, being kind of surrendered to a higher calling is demanding. It demands a lot of sacrifice in a lot of ways, sacrificing a lot of instant gratification. So I think this dedication to a higher calling is a very tender-hearted state, but that it requires a lot of toughness, because purpose doesn't come easy, and results don't come easy, and change doesn't come easy. It's a long haul, like a higher calling is a lifelong process, and it requires a lot of patience. Being led by a higher calling, which INFPs often are, is definitely a state of tenderness and a state of toughness simultaneously. And the last quality that I think is both a very gentle and a hardcore quality in the INFP personality type is our state of wonderment, or our childlike wonder. And the reason that I think this is both a tender and a tough quality is because, well, obviously, in order to maintain childlike wonder towards things, you have to stay soft, and you have to stay open, and you have to let things affect you. You have to be like amazed. You have to let life affect you. And so you have to stay soft. You have to stay tender towards life if you want to experience childlike wonder. But on the other hand, for an INFP who is deep diving into the rough, uncomfortable emotional waters and exploring both the light and the dark constantly within themselves and within others, to maintain that kind of softness and openness that allows for wonderment takes a lot of toughness. Like, to stay open in the face of all the darkness that we face constantly. Our wonderment is not coming from naivety. Our wonderment is an incredibly strong willingness to be affected by life. And I think that takes both tenderness and toughness. Thank you so much, INFPs, for listening to another video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you enjoyed it, please consider subscribing. Have a wonderful day, my tender and tough community. Much love.